In the previous video, we learned about how we can create and call functions. But there was one question left unanswered. What if I want the same function to work with different values? For example, instead of displaying Hello Swati every single time, I want the same function to greet Rahul, Priya, John, and any other person. Do I need to create different function for every name? Thankfully, the answer is no. Python gives us something called as parameters and arguments. And once you understand them, your functions become much more powerful and flexible. Hello learners, welcome to your learning hub, the Learning Loop. I am Swati Sharma and this is the 34th video of my beginner friendly Python course series. If you're joining me for the first time, thank you for dropping by. And if you haven't checked out my previous videos yet and you are starting out on your Python journey, please go ahead and check those out so that you are all caught up. Before we proceed with the video, if you haven't subscribed my channel yet, please press the subscribe button and hit the bell icon so you do not miss out on any future videos. In today's video, we will explore parameters and arguments in functions. So, without a further ado, let's dive in. Previously, we created functions like def, greet, brackets, colon, hit enter. The next line is indented and we wrote print hello. And we call them using greet brackets and this worked perfectly. But there is one limitation. This function always produces the same output. What if we want to produce different output every time? That's where the parameters come in. Let's understand parameters with example. I will be doing today's demo in Google Colab and I will paste the link to this notebook in the description box below. So just in case you would like to come back and check the code out in future, you may go ahead and do that. Let's first understand parameters in functions. So earlier we defined functions something like def, greet, and we just gave print and I said hello. And let's say this time I also put the name as Swati. And I will run it and I will call the function in the next cell. Run it, it says hello Swati. And let's say I again call the function. I run it and it again would say hello Swati. So it's giving the same output and there is no way for me to change it. So in this scenario, we will try and give the parameter and see how that will help us. So let's say we define the same function and I say greet. And this time I pass the parameter. So whatever we give within these brackets when we are creating or declaring a function is called a parameter. The name here is a parameter. Now how we can use it? That's like a temporary variable that will get the values and store it and will use it in the function. So let's say in this case, I will say print and I would say hello. And then I would say name. Now this name is acting as a temporary variable which will store the values, and how it will store it we will see the next when we are calling the function. So this time instead of just giving greet brackets, I will pass the argument here. So whenever we are calling the function and whatever the values we are giving whenever we are calling the function are called arguments. So here Swati is an argument. And let's I say hello Priya and let's say I say greet. You can pass any argument in it you like and it will give us the results accordingly. You can see it has replaced hello and whatever the argument we have passed. it passed Swati, Priya, Rahul. What it did, it took this argument stored in this variable or this parameter name and then replaced the name here with that particular argument that we passed when we were calling the function. Right now, you see an example where we have passed only a single parameter. But we are not limited to passing the single parameters. You can pass more than one parameter as well. In fact, you can pass as many parameters you would like when you are declaring a function. Let's check that out as well. Let's say I say define or def. And I say again greet, and I say name, and I say location. Okay, these are the two parameters that I have passed. And if you are declaring multiple parameters, those have to be separated using a comma. And I'll say print, and I will say hello everyone. I will use the formatting here. My name is, and I'll use the parameter here, name, and I am from, and I'll use location here. Okay. Let's run it. And now let's call it using the two parameters here or two arguments here. And I will say greet. And I will say Swati, India. And let's run it, and you can see, hello everyone, my name is Swati and I'm from India, as I have written in the print statement. Now, the important thing to note is when I pass the arguments, I have passed Swati in the place of name and India in the place of location, right? What if I reverse it? Would it take it the same way? Let's check it out. Let's see, I say greet and I say India, and then I'll say Swati. Let's see what happens. You can see it reversed the order. Now, when we are declaring or when we are calling a function and we are passing the arguments without giving the parameters or for which parameter we are calling them are called positional arguments. Now, the positional argument means the arguments have to be in the same order as the parameters were. In this case, the first parameter passed was name and the second parameter passed was location. And when I pass the arguments, I have to use the same position to pass my arguments. In the place of name, I have to pass the name, and in the place of location, I have to pass the location. If you reverse the order, the Python has no way to know that you have used India as a location argument and Swati as a name argument, and it will reverse it. Okay, so if you're using the positional arguments, you have to make sure that the position of the arguments is same as the parameters. However, there are something called as keyword arguments as well. So to eradicate this problem, what we can do is when you are calling a function, you can give the name of the parameter for which you are going to pass the argument and give the value India, and then comma name is equal to Swati. So what I did, whatever my parameter name was when I declared the function, I used that in the argument and assigned my value to that, and that ways you can reverse the order as well, and Python would still know that you have used India as a location and Swati as a name. And now you can see it has correctly printed my print statement, that is, hello everyone, my name is Swati and I am from India. And one more type of arguments are there which are called default arguments. Let's do that as well. Let's say again, I'm going to use the same function greet, and this time I'm going to use name, is equal to, and I'll say guest. Now, this is a default argument, which means if just in case I do not pass this argument in my when I'm declaring or when I am calling my function, it will automatically use the default argument that I have used. I'm not going to use any other parameters here, and I will just say print, and I'll say hello, and I'll say name. Okay, let's run it. And let's say I do not pass any argument here, and just run it, and you can see it says hello guest. If you don't pass this default argument and try and run it, it will give the error. Okay, so if you have not passed any default argument, you have to make sure that you pass any argument when you're calling the function. In our case, right now I've passed the default argument, which means if I do not pass any value for this particular parameter, we are okay to use the default argument that I have already passed when I declared the function. We can take one more example for the same function. Let's say I say define, and I say greet, and I say name is equal to guest, and location. When I run this, I get an error because I have passed the default parameter or default argument before the parameter, which does not have any default argument. So let's delete this. Then you have to define it before the default argument. So you will do location, name is equal to guest, and let's run it, and you should run without any issues. Now you can do greet, and if you can do India, it will take that the first argument that you have given is for the location, and it will replace the name with guest. Or you can also use the keyword argument here. That shouldn't be a problem. It would be the same thing. But make sure if you are defining any default arguments when you're declaring a function, the default arguments should be declared after the normal parameters. If you do that before the normal parameters, you will get a error I have seen earlier. That I got an error that the default parameter is defined earlier than the normal parameter or a parameter without a default value. It's time for you guys to practice. I have given some of the practice questions in the description box below. So go ahead and check it out, pause this video and try those questions out. If in case you stuck somewhere, please comment below and I can take up those questions in one of my next videos. If this video helped you understand parameters and arguments in functions a little better, please don't forget to like, share and subscribe. I will see you guys in the next video. Until then, happy coding!